It started with a package. No details, no questions, just a pickup and a drop-off. Then came more. Names, photos, instructions with no sender. By the time I figured out what I was caught in, I wasn't doing jobs anymore. I was part of something, and there was no backing out. I was 25 when I realized I was stuck. Not just stuck at my job, which paid barely enough to keep the lights on. Not just stuck in a relationship that felt more like a lease agreement than love. I was stuck in something bigger, something I couldn't even name at the time. It started with a phone call from my mother. Nothing unusual about that. She called about once a week, mostly to guilt-trip me into visiting or remind me that my younger sister had just landed a new job, again, or that my dad wasn't feeling great lately, which usually meant he was mad at something. But this time, her voice was different. Clip, almost nervous. "I need to ask you a favor," she said. That alone was rare. My parents weren't the asking type. They were more the assigning type. She said my cousin Tyler had run into some trouble. Credit cards. A loan. Something about a friend taking advantage of him. She didn't go into detail. Just that he owed money and couldn't pay it, and the people he owed were apparently showing up at his apartment. Now, Tyler and I weren't close. Technically he was my second cousin, but he'd lived with us for about a year in high school when his mom was in rehab. So I knew him, knew how he operated, and the idea of someone taking advantage of him, that didn't track. He was the one who borrowed your bike and pawned it 2 days later. That kind of guy. "I told them you might be able to help," she said. I didn't say anything at first. Not a yes, not a no. She added, "Just meet with them. Talk. Maybe you can work something out." I should have hung up. I should have said, "This isn't my problem." But instead, I agreed. I don't know why. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was that little leftover piece of guilt they install in you as a kid, the one that says you don't say no to family. So the next day, I met with 2 guys in a parking lot outside a diner. They didn't look like gangsters, more like contractors. One wore a polo tucked into jeans, the other had a clipboard. But their tone, that was different. They said Tyler had borrowed $12,000 over the last year. Interest stacked monthly. No payments made in 4 months. The balance was now north of $17,000. When I asked what this had to do with me, the clipboard guy said, "He gave us your name." That was all. He'd given them my name, and now I was the one getting phone calls. I left that meeting and called my mother. She acted surprised, said she thought it was just a few thousand, maybe less, said she had no idea they'd come after me, but she didn't apologize. And neither did Tyler. I called him, asked what he was thinking. He said, "It's not like they'd do anything to you. You've got a job. They just want someone reliable." Reliable. That word stuck with me. I didn't agree to anything at that meeting. No signature, no handshake. But a week later, they called me again. Different number, same tone. "We're following up on the Tyler situation," the guy said. Like it was some overdue invoice from a dental office. I told him I had nothing to do with it. He said, "Sure, but you're the one who met with us. That makes you the only one who hasn't vanished." That line stuck with me. I went by Tyler's apartment the next morning. Empty. Completely cleaned out. Neighbors said he'd left 2 nights ago. Just loaded up a backpack and took off. So now I was the only name on their radar. Not officially, but it didn't matter. The next time they called, they didn't ask anymore. "We'll give you 2 weeks, they said. 17,000, or something equal in value. I asked what that meant. Could be cash. Could be work. Doesn't matter to us. At that point, I should have gone to the police. I should have done something smart. But the thing is, when you're used to cleaning up other people's messes, you don't look for exits. You look for mops. And I wasn't exactly on solid ground either. My job paid just enough to cover rent and gas. My girlfriend, Dana, had been distant for months. I was one missed paycheck away from sleeping in my car, so I did something stupid. I met with them again. This time, it wasn't a diner. It was a car wash. One of those 24-hour places where no one asks questions. There were only 2 of them. Same clipboard guy, and a younger guy who barely spoke. They gave me a list. 3 names. All local. "You do small pickups," clipboard guy said. "Each job's worth a chunk. Finish the list, we call it even." I asked what kind of pickups. He said, "Nothing forbidden. Just movement. In and out." Then he handed me a flip phone and said, "You'll get a time and place. Don't be late. No contract. No threats. Just an expectation." I took the phone. Didn't say yes. Didn't say no. But I took the phone. That night, Dana asked where I'd been. I said I was helping my cousin with something. She didn't ask which one. She was already halfway back to her phone. The first text came 2 days later. no name, just an address and a time, 8:45 p.m., 11:05, Brighton Street, back alley, black bag, no other instructions. I sat in my car for 15 minutes before getting out. It was a quiet neighborhood, no cameras. The kind of place where the trash bins don't get rolled in until the next morning. At exactly 8:45, a garage door opened. A man in a hoodie stepped out and placed a duffel bag by the alley wall. Then he walked back in. Door shut, lights off. I waited. No one else came, so I took the bag. It wasn't heavy. Inside were stacked envelopes, sealed tight, no markings. I didn't open them. I was told to drop it off at a P.O. box across town. I did. That was it. No thanks. No follow-up, just silence. Then, 3 days later, another text came through. Pickup number 2, and just like that, I was in. Second pickup was on the south end of the city, near the train yards. Not the kind of place you hang out unless you're waiting for something, or someone, you don't want to explain. Same drill. Text with a time and location. This time, 10:20 p.m. sharp. The address led to a rusted-out shipping container behind a half-dead warehouse. The kind of spot you see in movies right before something goes wrong. I parked 1 block away and walked the rest. Phone in my pocket. Jacket zip. No bag this time, just a man, leaning against the container like he was waiting for a pizza. He didn't say a word, just nodded once and handed me a thick manila envelope. He kept his eyes on me the whole time, didn't blink, didn't speak. I took the envelope and walked back the way I came. Inside my car, I stared at it for a while. No markings, no address. Just wait. Not heavy, but heavy enough to make you think twice. The phone buzzed again before I could even start the engine. Drop at locker 422, Union Station, 20 minutes. That gave me 10 minutes to get across town and park. No time to hesitate, just move. I got there with 3 minutes to spare. Slid the envelope into the locker, shut it, walked away. That was it. No cops, no cameras, no contact. 2 days later, they sent money, not cash. A digital transfer to a prepaid debit card I didn't even remember applying for. $3,400. No message, no confirmation, just the amount. And just like that, the $17,000 didn't feel so far away. But the problem with doing one favor is that it makes the second one easier. And the third one automatic. That's how it works. By the time the third pickup came in, I didn't even flinch. Different side of the city. Abandoned motel off the interstate. I was told to bring gloves. This one wasn't a bag, or an envelope. It was a car, a tan sedan, keys on the dash, door unlocked. Inside the glove box was a sealed package, no label. My job was simple, drive it to a garage outside of town, leave it in bay number 6, and walk away. No contact, just deliver and disappear. And I did, took the back roads. No music, just tires and thoughts. What was I doing? Helping, running errands, getting in deeper. The garage was about 45 minutes outside the city. Looked closed, but the bay door was cracked open like it was expecting me. I pulled in, killed the engine, left the keys in the ignition. As I got out, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Camera, mounted above the bay door. No blinking red light, no motorized swivel, just, watching. For the first time, I hesitated. Not enough to leave, but enough to know I wasn't doing favors anymore. I was involved. I thought maybe that was it. 3 pickups, 3 drops, a single camera I couldn't stop thinking about. Then nothing for a week. No texts, no money, silence. I started sleeping better. Started thinking maybe it was a test, see how far I'd go, then cut me loose. Then the phone buzzed again. No message, just a location pin, dropped in the middle of a neighborhood I recognized. 1 street over from where Dana's sister used to live. Normal block, driveways, porch lights, swing sets in the yards. Time, 6 p.m. Earlier than usual. Right during daylight. I showed up 15 minutes early and parked around the corner. Sat with the engine off, just watching. At exactly 6, a guy stepped out of the house. Khakis, windbreaker, clean shave. Looked like someone's uncle. He walked to my window, knocked twice, then got in the passenger seat like we were old friends. Didn't say hi. Just placed a plastic grocery bag on the floor between his feet. You know where to go? He asked. I nodded, even though I didn't. He handed me a slip of paper with a cross street and a time. Then he sat back like he was getting comfortable. You're gonna drive me there, he said. That's it. I started the car. Didn't ask questions. Just drove. 10 minutes in, I glanced at him. He was scrolling through his phone, calm as anything. "What's in the bag?" I asked. He looked up, like he was surprised I spoke, then smiled. Not a warm smile, just confirmation. "You're not paid to ask that," he said. "Just to drive." I didn't say anything after that. We reached the cross streets a few minutes early. He told me to pull into the alley behind a pawn shop. There was a black SUV already parked there, lights off, engine running. The man got out, grabbed the bag, walked over to the SUV and tapped the driver's window. They talked for less than 10 seconds. He came back empty-handed. "Thanks," he said, and got out. Didn't look back. I waited a full minute before pulling out of the alley. My hands were sweating, not because anything had happened, but because I realized how normal it all felt. How routine. That night, I found Dana packing a weekend bag, said she was going to stay at her friend's place, said she needed space to think. I didn't ask what that meant. I just told her to take the time she needed. She looked at me like she wanted to say more, but didn't. Then she left, and I was alone again. The phone buzzed the next morning. No job, no payment, just one sentence. "You're reliable." That was the first time they ever gave me feedback. It didn't feel like praise. It felt like a line being drawn. After that last job, I kept the phone close. Not because I wanted another gig, but because I didn't want to be surprised. Every buzz now felt like a checkpoint, like a reminder I hadn't clocked out. For 3 days, nothing. On the 4th, I got a message. "Need a place for a few hours. Quiet. Tonight." No name, no explanation. I didn't respond, just stared at the screen like it might change. Then a second message. "You've got a place. Use it." I was renting a 1-bedroom apartment in a 5-unit building. Old place. Thin walls. No cameras. Back entrance off the alley. I didn't think anyone knew that, but clearly, someone did. I sat with it for a long time, debated calling someone. The police? My landlord? But deep down, I knew how this worked. This wasn't a request. It was a courtesy message. So I cleaned the apartment, took anything valuable, cash, documents, hard drives, and shoved them in the trunk of my car, left the back door unlocked, went to a diner across town and sat for 3 hours. No text came in, no updates. Just me, coffee, and silence. When I got back, the door was locked again. Everything inside looked exactly the same. Except for one thing, the phone I'd been given. It wasn't where I left it. It was now on the kitchen table. Battery cover off. SIM card gone. There was no note. But I didn't need one. They'd been inside. Not just physically. Inside my space. My schedule. My life. That night, I drove out to a 24-hour gas station on the edge of the county and used their Wi-Fi to look up burner phones. Bought one in cash the next morning. I didn't activate it. Just kept it in the glove box like a seatbelt you never planned to use. 3 days later, a letter arrived. Not typed, not stamped, just a plain white envelope slid under my door. Inside was a photo of me, taken from across the street. I was unlocking my apartment door, wearing the same hoodie I had on now. No message, no name, just the photo. They weren't asking for anything this time. They were reminding me. The photo sat on my table for 2 days. I didn't touch it, didn't throw it away either. Just stared at it every time I walked past, like it might start explaining itself. It didn't. The next message came through the burner I hadn't even activated yet. No number, just one word on the lock screen. Tonight. Then the screen went dark again. I stood there in the parking lot of a grocery store, holding a phone that wasn't supposed to be active, wondering how they even got the number. Then I realized, I never changed the SIM, just the phone. They never needed the number. They needed the card. And I'd left the old one in the glove box. That's all it took. They'd been one step ahead, again. That night, no address came in, no specific time, just the word. So I stayed home. I left the door unlocked, and waited. Nothing happened, until 3:17 a.m., when someone knocked once on the back door, then left. I didn't move, just waited. At 7 a.m., I opened the door and found another envelope. Inside were 2 things. 1, a printed map with a red circle over a house in a suburban neighborhood I didn't recognize. 2, a post-it note stuck to the map that said, "He'll leave at 9, get the box in the garage. Be gone by 9:10. No name, no warning, just an address, a time, and instructions. I was tired of this. Tired of waking up with my jaw clenched. Tired of acting like I had control, but I still showed up. Because at that point, I knew the real rule. The jobs don't stop when you're uncomfortable. They stop when you're useful. And I was still useful. The house was in a cookie-cutter neighborhood. Basketball hoop in the driveway. Wind chimes on the porch. Nothing about it looked like trouble. At 9 o'clock sharp, a silver Lexus backed out of the garage and drove off. I waited 60 seconds. Walked up the side gate, opened the garage. The box was already sitting by the door, labeled with a name I didn't recognize, taped shut, no locks, no alarms, no one watching. I carried it back to my car, placed it in the trunk, and drove. The drop location was scribbled on the bottom of the map. Unit B, Shady Pines Storage. It was one of those facilities tucked behind a strip mall. No office, just keypad entry and rows of roll-up doors. I found Unit B, slid the box inside, and left. That was it. Until I got back in my car and saw what was waiting under my windshield wiper. Another photo. This time, it was me leaving the garage. From the neighbor's yard, less than 30 feet away. The message wasn't subtle. I wasn't alone, not before, not during. Someone had been there the whole time, watching. After the storage drop, I started looking at people differently. The guy walking his dog across the street, was he watching me or just killing time? The woman on the bus, pretending to scroll her phone, was she timing me? The paranoia didn't come all at once. It crept in slowly, just like everything else in this thing. That night, I drove to the next town over and paid cash for a gym membership I didn't plan to use. Just for the locker. I needed somewhere to keep things. The photos. The phone. A copy of my driver's license in case I lost it suddenly. I didn't know if it would help, but having them all out of my apartment helped me breathe a little easier. For 2 weeks, nothing. No texts. No drops. No new envelopes under the door. I started to think maybe it was over. Then, at exactly 2:45 a.m. on a Tuesday, I got a call. Not a text, a call. First one since this whole thing started. I didn't recognize the number. Didn't answer. It rang 4 times, then stopped. 10 seconds later, my regular phone lit up. This time, blocked number. I picked up. The voice was low, flat, unrushed. "You've been good," it said. "That's why this next part's important." I didn't speak. The voice continued. "There's a package being delivered tomorrow. It's coming to your address. Bring it to 291 Fletcher. No later than 1 p.m. You'll leave it in the red bin behind the church." That was it. Call ended. No way to call back. No way to ask questions. The next morning, the package arrived. A plain box, left on my porch like it was from Amazon. No label. No sender. Just my name, printed cleanly in black marker. I didn't open it. Didn't shake it. Just stared at it, knowing I was holding someone else's problem, and it was going to be mine if I messed this up. I drove the package across town at 12:45 and found the church. Small place, red brick, with a worn-out sign about Sunday service. The red bin was behind it. Looked like it used to hold sand or salt for the winter. Now it held secrets. I lifted the lid, dropped the box in. That's when I noticed something taped to the underside of the lid. Another post-it. "You don't work for us. You owe us." That's when it hit me. This wasn't a job. It wasn't a trade. It wasn't a test. It was a balance sheet. And they weren't done collecting. After the church drop, I waited. Not for thanks. Not for money. Just for whatever came next. And it did, exactly 3 days later. An envelope. No address. Slid under my door again like the floorboards themselves were in on it. Inside were 4 things. 1, a photo of me, again. This time, standing at the red bin. 2, a printout of my bank account balance. Recently deposited $1,200 I hadn't earned. 3, a list of 5 names. 4, a key. No instructions. No time. Just 5 names. No last names, just firsts. Ben, Diego, Mira, Lance, Tanya. Next to each name, a city, a cross street, a time window. The key was small, brass, looked like it belonged to a storage locker or maybe a padlock. I didn't know what any of it meant, but I understood one thing. I wasn't picking things up anymore. This felt different, more personal. I started with the first name, Ben, 3 p.m., East Terrace and 9th, Thursday. I staked out the corner from across the street. Just watched. And sure enough, at 2:58, a man in his 40s pulled up on foot, carrying a small black case. He looked around, then walked into a hardware store and came out 5 minutes later, empty-handed. He dropped the case somewhere inside. That was it. I followed the pattern for the next 2 days. Diego, same thing, different drop point, same exact routine. They weren't deliveries. These people were hiding things. And someone else, me, probably, was supposed to retrieve them. But by the time I got to Mira, it changed. She wasn't careful. She looked right at me. I'd parked half a block away, same routine, just watching. But when she stepped out of her car, she stared straight at mine. Not a glance, a look, like she knew me. Or worse, recognized me. I ducked, waited. When I looked again, she was gone. No bag, no package, no drop, just vanished. That night, I didn't sleep, not because I was afraid she saw me, but because I wasn't sure who she was. And I realized I never asked the question that mattered most. How big is this thing? Because from what I'd seen, it wasn't just me. There were others. People like Ben, Diego, Mira. Maybe they owed. Maybe they were getting paid. Maybe they started like I did, picking up bags, following instructions, staying quiet. And now they were part of something they couldn't name. Just like me. After Mira, I stopped waiting for instructions. I started digging. There wasn't much to go on, just the list of names. But I figured if I could find out who they were, maybe I'd get a clue about who I was in all this. I started with Ben. After 3 hours of combing through local court records and public posts, I found a mugshot. DUI, 4 years ago. Lost his license. Never showed up for court. Debt. Diego. Same story, different flavor. A construction permit scandal. Took bribes. Got caught. Vanished before the hearing. Debt. Lance and Tanya were harder to trace. No public records. But both had addresses that didn't exist anymore. Foreclosed. Demolished. Disconnected. People don't just go missing in the system like that unless someone helps them disappear, or forces them to. So I went back to the only place I still had leverage. That storage unit. I drove out at midnight. Opened the locker. Everything was still there. Burner phones, printouts, old notes. And in the back corner, taped to the wall behind a false panel I hadn't noticed, another envelope. Not from them. From someone else. Slid into the unit like a message in a bottle. Inside, a USB stick and a note. If you found this, they're watching you too, but you already knew that. Plug this in somewhere private, then leave the country. That last line stuck with me. I didn't go home. I drove straight to a 24-hour internet cafe on the edge of town. Paid in cash. Plugged in the stick. There was a video file. Grainy, timestamp, hidden camera footage. Me. In the car. At the church. At the first pickup. Every job I'd done. Recorded. Not from my angle, from theirs. Then the footage changed. Different people, different cities, different faces, but the same format, same setup, same camera angles, same drop-offs. All of them being watched. All of them following instructions like I had. Like they didn't know how to say no. It wasn't a gang. It wasn't a debt collection ring. It was a system. And we were just the pieces. Someone built this. Someone was running it. And whoever left me that USB, they weren't just warning me. They were the first person who ever told me the truth. This isn't about the debt. It's about who can be controlled. I left the internet cafe at 3 a.m., feeling like I'd finally seen the whole chessboard, and I was the pawn who thought he was the player. The stick proved it. I wasn't the only one. Not by a long shot. There were dozens of us. Maybe hundreds. Different cities. Same leash. I didn't go home. I drove 6 hours north, slept in the back of my car, and by morning, I had a plan. It wasn't revenge. Or justice. I knew I wasn't taking this thing down. Whatever it was bigger than one name, one man, one location. But I could do the one thing they didn't expect. Disappear on my own terms. 4 weeks, I prepared. I sold off what I could. Closed my accounts, slow and quiet. Moved everything to cash. Quit my job by just not showing up. No calls. No messages. Just silence. Dana texted twice, then stopped. The burner phone went into a river. The SIM card they track, burned. I used a fake ID to buy a cheap used truck from a guy who didn't ask questions. Then I left. No goodbye. No post. No trace. I drove west until the air felt different. Until the signs changed from green to brown. Until there was more sky than road. Eventually, I found a place. Small mountain town. Tourist heavy in summer, dead quiet in winter. Locals didn't ask about your past, they just wanted to know if you could hold a wrench or swing a hammer. I told them I could. I got a job fixing cabins, then roofing them, then managing the crews who did. 1 year in, I was clean. Not just from them, but from who I'd been. The only thing I brought with me was the USB drive. I keep it locked in a box under a false board in the floor of my cabin. Every now and then, I plug it in again, just to remind myself what I escaped. I don't know if the system still runs. I assume it does. But here's the truth. You can't outrun them by hiding better. You can only outrun them by becoming someone not worth following. Someone with no leverage left to take. Someone who doesn't owe anything, not money, not silence, not fear. I live small now. Quiet. No online trail. No social media. Just work, groceries, the cold, and a wood stove that takes forever to light. But it's mine. And if they ever come looking again, whoever they are, they won't find a man waiting to play. They'll find someone who already folded, walked away from the table, and built something of his own in the woods outside the game.